Good evening, I'm David Brown, and this is the Northern Sun Experience. Until this past weekend, everything was going right for Northern State women's basketball. A 15-1 overall record and the number 4 ranking in the D2 Top 25 poll. But now the Wolves can safely say that nothing is a slam dunk. They took on Southwest Minnesota State last Friday in Marshall, a team with only one conference win coming in. But the Mustangs were primed for the upset. Anessa Rosh buries the jumper. She led SMSU with 22. Second half now, 1-point game. Rosh feeds Emily Dusky down low. That increases the lead to 3. Final seconds, it's back to a 1-point game, and Northern has the chance to win. But the Mustangs do a great job doubling Rachel Krogman in the post. Devin Brecky has to take a long 2, and it does not fall. SMSU upsets Northern State 53-52. Going over to the men's side, a long game between Minot State and Upper Iowa, and it was the Grant Lang show. Sweeps in for the layup here, and then a little bit later in the second half, he spots up for 3 from the right elbow. A back-and-forth affair with Minot State all game long, but Lang ends up with 31 points on 11 of 17 shooting, and the Peacocks top the Beavers in double overtime, 107-101. Well, we just showed 2 of the more exciting games, but there's still plenty of NSIC hoops to discuss. When we come back, we'll break it all down with former Augustana point guard Jordan Dalton.
The Northern Sun Experience on Midco Sports Network is presented by CU Mortgage Direct LLC, Sanford Health, and Dakota Land Honda.
Welcome back to the Northern Sun Experience, joined by our expert basketball analyst, former Augustana point guard Jordan Dalton. And Jordan, no bias, but we kind of have to talk about your alma mater, don't we?
Absolutely. They've been playing out of their minds. So, I mean, if you're going to force me to analyze Augustana Vikings, we must have to do it.
Exactly. Augustana has won 10 games in a row. They had a road sweep this weekend, topping St. Cloud State and Minnesota Duluth. Now, of their 10 wins in a row, 7 have been by double digits. So what's been the overall key to their success over the course of this winning streak?
Yeah, I think they have a very dynamic front court with Casey Schilling and Dan Jansen. Dan Jansen just presents matchup problems. He can shoot the 3 from outside, but he also is a load to carry down low. When he posts up, defense has to make a decision. If they're going to double team him, they run the risk of leaving 3-point shooters like Alex Richter, Tanner Odegaard. They run the risk of leaving those guys open. And Augie has been doing a great job making over 8 3-pointers a game. And so you really put the defense in a tough spot, because then if they decide to single cover Dan, he's been putting up 29, 25, 27, 20-plus points per game this season. And so it's just one of those things. Defenses are in a tough spot because if you double team them, you're going to leave 3-point shooters open. But if you try to single cover, guard them just with one player, they're really going to struggle.
Yeah, absolutely. They're bare offensively, 101 points at St. Cloud State, 95 at Minnesota Duluth. And you mentioned Dan Jansen. Second time he was the South Division Player of the Week. Well, Minnesota State Moorhead is keeping pace with Augustana. They have 8 wins in a row now, 20-1 overall. It's the best start in school history, and they're actually the only team in the conference in the top 3 in both total offense and defense. So at this point, is Moorhead more complete than Augustana, or can you really flip a coin between them?
I was going to say, you're splitting hairs between 2 great teams in NSIC this year. I really like the way Moorhead plays on offense. They're so efficient on the offensive end of the court. They shoot the ball over 51% from the field and average over 17 assists per game. So they really share the basketball, and it makes it tough for defenses to key in on one specific person. As you mentioned, they're top 3 in the league in defense as well. If you look, they've scored over 80 points 11 times this year, but have only given up 80 points twice this year. And so it's really great to see a balanced team like that. They're going to make you work for every single shot you get, and that's tough on offense to execute that way on a consistent basis. So when you're looking at Moorhead, they're going to be a tough out in the tournament, mainly because they put a lot of pressure on you scoring over 80 points a game on the offensive end, but they also make you work for every single shot you get on the defensive end as well.
I know we're more than a month away from the conference tournament, but Moorhead's only loss was by 2 points to Minnesota Duluth. So at this point, do you expect Augustana and Moorhead just to be in that contention at the very end, possibly a championship matchup?
Obviously, I think, with the way the records are shaping up, those are the number 1, number 2 seeds. But I think if you'd ask Mankato, they'd have something to say about that as well. And we talked about it. It's tough getting road wins. And so to me, as we're finishing out the conference season, that's going to distinguish the great teams from the good teams in the latter part of this conference season is who can consistently go out and get wins on the road.
Absolutely. Moorhead and Augustana still only 1 loss for both of them on the year. Well, sort of an under-the-radar team right now is Upper Iowa. They won a thrilling double overtime game against Minot State on Friday, but then they turn around on Saturday. I don't know if they were tired, but they lost to UMary, who's at the bottom of the North Division standing. So my question for you is, they're second in the conference in scoring. Can they challenge those top teams, or do they need to establish some defense?
That you hit the nail on the head there. Like you said, they average almost 83 points a game and force almost 9 steals a game. And so they play at a very fast tempo, very up-paced style of basketball, but at the same time, they're only shooting 44% from the field and giving up 79 points on defense. And so if you look at those upper echelon teams, those Moorhead States, those Augies, they do a great job of committing to defense every single possession. And if Upper Iowa really wants to crack into some of those top 3, top 4 teams, they're going to have to prove they can get stops consistently.
Absolutely. The offense, no question, is there, but as you said, the defense is going to have to step up if they want to challenge some teams at the top of the conference. Well, from purely a number standpoint, I know numbers don't always necessarily tell the whole story. Northern State is 7th in the conference in offense, 8th in defense, so they're sort of right in the middle of the pack, but they have the 4th best record, and they're second in the North Division standing. So how do you explain sort of this number disparity?
I look at it in the fact, we talked last week that they have 4 guys averaging double figures. And so when you have a team like that, it's tough to scout against because you can't key in on one person. And so each night it could be somebody different that's stepping up to the plate to really carry the load, as far as the offense goes. And then you look at their losses. 2 out of their 3 losses this year have been to Moorhead State. And so they haven't had any bad losses. They've won the games they're supposed to win. They're a very aggressive team, shooting more than 80 free throws, than their opponent this year. So they're a very aggressive team. They always got the foot to the metal, or the pedal to the metal, and they're a fun team to watch, but nothing really jumps out at you. And that's what scares me as you move along and get deeper and deeper into the conference season. You're gonna have to have a couple guys that really stand out. And do they have enough in the tank to really take that next leap into one of those great teams?
Might be a little bit anonymous now, but maybe not anymore. Seth Bashan, the North Division Player of the Week for Northern State. All right, what is the matchup you're looking forward to this upcoming weekend?
Well, you talked about a possible sleeper team in Upper Iowa. They come in and play Augustana, and that's going to be a great matchup because Upper Iowa, like we said, they average almost 9 steals a game. So if they're able to put some ball pressure on the ball handlers of Augustana and not allow them to get the ball into the post, they have a shot at winning. They like to play that up-tempo, kind of run-and-gun type basketball. And if they're able to keep the ball out of the post, out of the paint, with Dan Jansen and Casey Schilling, they'll have a shot at getting a W.
But, of course, Casey Schilling can be both inside and outside, so it seems like Augie's sort of got the complete package on offense. With Upper Iowa, a team that's second in the conference in scoring, are you expecting a shootout?
I think it will be a higher scoring game just because of the way Upper Iowa plays. But Augustana has proven that they have no problem playing in the 80s or 90s this season. And so if that's the pace the game takes, I think Augie will be pretty comfortable there as well.
Should be an interesting matchup between the Peacocks and Vikings this weekend. Well, when we come back, Jordan will break things down on the women's side, including why Minnesota Crookston might be a sleeper down the stretch.
The Northern Sun Experience on Midco Sports Network is presented by CU Mortgage Direct LLC, Sanford Health, and Dakota Land Honda.
And welcome back to the Northern Sun Experience. Once again, joined by Jordan Dalton, former Augustana point guard. We're going to switch to the women's side now. And Jordan, a bump in the road for Northern State. They lose both their games this weekend. A 1-point game to Southwest Minnesota State, a case where the team with the lowest record in the league actually beat the team with the highest record in the league, so a huge upset there. And then on Saturday, they lose at Sioux Falls. How do they rebound from this 2-game slide?
Well, I think they learned a valuable lesson this weekend, and the fact that when you're ranked top 5 in the country, you're going to get everybody's best shot. And so, like you said, when they throw that ball up and the tip-off is going, records go out the window at that point. You have to play 40 minutes of great basketball. And we talked about how tough it is to go on the road and get two wins in this conference. And it just didn't seem like they had that same type of energy and intensity on the defensive end to really get 2 wins. And that showed. And we talked about it before. That's why they play the game. Like you said, records don't mean a lot when that ball goes in the air. And so what they're going to have to learn is that no matter who they're playing, they have a target on their backs right now. They've been number 1 in the conference before this weekend. The entire season was ranked top 5 in the country. And so they're going to get everybody's best shot. And when everybody's gunning for you, you got to be on your P's and Q's at all time. You can't take plays off. You can't take games off. And I felt like this weekend was tough for them, and the fact that they just weren't ready to play in both of those situations.
Yeah, usually they hold opponents to under 50 points a game. 53 for SMSU, 58 for Sioux Falls. So it wasn't exactly a bad defensive effort, but is it a case maybe where the pace is what they wanted, but the other teams were just hitting shots?
Well, when you look at Northern State, one thing they've struggled with all season is getting easy buckets. Everything they get is typically in a half-court set, and they use the entire shot clock. So when they're struggling to score, their defense has to be that much better because they're not creating any easy opportunities. They don't get a lot of transition buckets. And so they really have to hang their hat on being the toughest defensive team, closing possessions out with rebounds, limiting teams to 1 shot. And if you look at their offensive output, they shot 38% against Marshall and only 32% against University of Sioux Falls. So that type of offensive output just puts a little bit too much pressure on your defensive end of the basketball.
Northern State still at the top of the standings despite the 2-game swing. Well, you were mentioning Sioux Falls. You mentioned them last week as a team to be on the lookout for. You specifically said you liked what Travis Trapphagen was doing, and now they're tied at the top of the South Division standings with Wayne State and Winona State with a 9-3 record. A 2-game sweep this weekend over MSU Moorhead and Northern State. Was this a statement weekend for the Cougars?
This was a great win for Coach Trapphagen and his program. This was a signature win is what it was. It allows players to really buy into your system. I'm sure all season long he's been talking about, hey, you guys are one of the best teams in the country. You can play with anybody in the country as long as you play the right way and play for each other. And this was one of those wins that validates that. This creates buy-in to that system because he's like, hey, I've told you can do this all year long. And kudos to those players. They went out there and got it done. You know, that, like I said, Northern State's top 5 team in the country, and they went out there and made 14 3-pointers against them and got the win. And so that's what it does. It creates momentum for the program, not only a recruiting standpoint, but for the rest of the regular season. It creates a lot of momentum, and that's the thing that they can't take a step back now. Now that they've gotten this big win, they can't become complacent. They have to continue to work hard, continue to push toward the end of the year, continue to play their style of basketball. They got a fun style of basketball. They really get
shoot
up
a lot of threes.
Exactly. Like I said, shot 35 3-pointers on Saturday against Northern State. So they get up and down. It's a fun way to play. It's a fun basketball game to watch. But they have to keep being consistent on the defensive end, though. We talked about it. That's going to be their Achilles heel moving forward. They're not going to have any problems scoring on the offensive end, but can they get stopped consistently enough to keep themselves in games?
Well, if there's one thing we learned this weekend, if you say they're a team on the rise next week, they may just do well. Well, a team that we haven't mentioned a whole lot this season is Minnesota Crookston. Quietly had a good weekend. Alexa Thielman was the player of the week. They topped Concordia St. Paul on Friday, and then they beat a really good Minnesota State team in overtime on Saturday. 7-5 in the conference now. Could they sneak up on some teams?
Oh, yeah, they're a dangerous team. Like you said, Thielman, she shot over 100 3-pointers this season, so she's going to let the ball ride. And they've been in every single game they're in, and that's what I love about this team. They haven't got blown out yet this year. You know, they've lost 5 points by a combined total of 24 points. Or 5 games, by a combined total of 24 points. So they're in every single game they've been playing. They just have to figure out a way to really execute in the half-court setting. They do a great job getting in transition, getting up and down. But when the game slows down, as close games tend to do, you got to be able to execute in the half-court setting when you're on offense, and you got to be able to limit teams to 1 shot on that defensive end. And so if they can make that jump, I really like them. I really like them in the fact that they're a dangerous team, and they've been in every game they've played this year.
So keep an eye out for the Golden Eagles. Well, Winona State swept another weekend. The Warriors have now won 4 games in a row, and as we mentioned earlier, they're tied with Wayne State and now USF for the top of the South Division standings. So do the Warriors have enough to pull away from that 3-way tie at the top?
I think they might. They do a great job of committing on the defensive end. They give up less than 58% or 58 points per game and holding opponents under 35% from the field. And so when your defense is your staple, that makes you a very, very dangerous team because no matter what's going on the offensive end, you can always count on that defense. They're also really tough on the road, 10-0 on the at home this season, and so it's a very difficult place to go in and get a win. I still think their biggest thing is how do they perform on the road? Are they going to be able to go and get 2 wins on the road when they need to as the conference season comes down to the end here?
We'll actually find out this weekend when they go on the road for a couple matchups. And what is the matchup you're looking forward to on the women's side this weekend?
Really looking for Crookston against Northern State. We talked about it before. It'll be interesting to see how Northern bounces back after a tough weekend. I can guarantee you that's not a fun week of practice to be in the gym. And so we'll see what they're really made of, what type of character that team has. And then Crookston, just like USF was last week, this is your opportunity to make a statement. This is your opportunity to say, hey, we belong in the top-tier teams of this conference, and we're here to compete, and we're for real. And so I'm really looking forward to see how that game plays out.
Absolutely. We'll see what happens this week, and thank you very much, Jordan Dalton, once again, for your expert analysis. Well, when we come back, it's Under the Northern Sun at Winona State University.
The Northern Sun Experience on Midco Sports Network is presented by CU Mortgage Direct LLC, Sanford Health, and Dakota Land Honda.
And welcome back to the Northern Sun Experience. It's time for Under the Northern Sun, where we shine the spotlight on one of our member schools. Tonight, it's Winona State University, where a tight-knit community has bonded athletes across all sports.
Winona, Minnesota. This island city that runs along the mighty Mississippi River is the home of the Warriors of Winona State University. WSU has 14 athletic teams that include 9 women's teams and 5 men's teams. The university itself also has 65 undergraduate programs, which gives student athletes a lot of opportunities to choose from when deciding to come to Winona State.
I chose Winona State because, first of all, it was a good location and it had the program that I wanted to go into, which was cardiac rehab, and I really just liked the atmosphere and the campus, and just everything was perfect.
While Winona State has many options, it's the family atmosphere that Warrior athletes love about Winona.
That's how we look at ourselves. We look at ourselves as one big family, and that's on the football team and even with the rest of the athletic programs around here, basketball, volleyball, soccer, whatever it may be. We're kind of like our own community of just like a big family almost, like we like to call it.
I just think that Winona is a really welcoming school. There's a lot of nice people on all of the sports teams. It's really easy to find a community of people that are like you and that you can just mesh with, and yeah, it's a lot of fun.
The Warriors are considered the pride and joy of southeastern Minnesota, as WSU fans come from far and wide to cheer for the Warriors.
Just the community itself, the environment around here, I mean, you couldn't ask for much more. You got the bluffs. It's a beautiful place, and the community is just awesome here, and I've really learned that since I've been here over these last 5 or 6 years, that the community stands behind their sports programs very strong, and they give a lot.
In recent years, the Warriors have developed a recipe for success at the Division II level. Dating back to 2006, Winona State has won 7 NCAA regional championships, including 2 NCAA runner-ups and 2 national championships in men's basketball.
2 years ago when we were going to Kentucky for the Final Four, I was astonished to see when we came out running the gate how all the left side to us was filled with Winona State apparel and Winona State fans and parents, and it's incredible, and they keep doing their thing.
Part of the Warriors' success can be attributed to top-notch facilities, including an integrated wellness complex. However, it's the support of the coaches, faculty, and fans that keep players coming to Winona State.
Awesome coaching staff. They care about their players, teachers, support their the athletic programs. They care about us. They help us out with schoolwork and in class. If we need an excuse to miss because of a game, they're all about helping us figuring it out.
The traveling is actually pretty fun with the teams. All the faculty is really flexible with that, and there's a lot of time on the road to do homework, and just bonding with your team is a good part of it, and you really learn a lot of time management skills, which is a good thing.
It's a good program. You really once you get here, you really learn and understand, what bleeding purple means. I'm gonna bleed purple for the rest of my life. Came in once a Warrior, I'm always gonna be a Warrior. Just a great place all in all, and I've really enjoyed my time here.
When we come back, it's DBs Picks, the top 5 plays of the past week in the NSIC.
The Northern Sun Experience on Midco Sports Network is presented by CU Mortgage Direct LLC, Sanford Health, and Dakota Land Honda.
Welcome back to the Northern Sun Experience. It's time for the best of the best, the top 5 plays of the past week in the NSIC. At number 5, we head to Sioux Falls, where it's Minnesota State Moorhead running the fast break. Isaac Sevely goes in for the one-handed slam. Here it is again, great work in transition. The Dragons are flying high with a 20-1 overall record, and Sevely's flying high for the flush at number 5. At number 4, we head to Duluth, where Trayton Daniels rocks the alley and Brendan Pineda finishes the oop. Now, Daniels is from Minnesota and Pineda is from Arizona, but this nonstop flight has no fare, just 4, as the number 4 play of the past week. For number 3, we stay in Duluth, but this time it's Wayne State with the perfect strategy. Down by 2 late, Kendall Jacks misses the free throw, but Trey Vandenberg gets the putback for the tie. Check it out one more time. Wildcats in a very tough position, but the miss bounces just the right way for Vandenberg. Now, Wayne State would eventually lose in overtime, but this putback 2 to tie things up in regulation comes in at number 3. For number 2, we go to St. Cloud, where Augustana's Adam Bayer gives the Huskies a headache with the steal and slam at the other end. Augies won 10 games in a row now, smooth sailing for the Viking ship, and a smooth glide to the basket for Bayer at number 2. But our number 1 play goes to Minot State University, who unofficially whiffed it. Now, it may seem like an oxymoron, but in this case, whiffing is a good thing. 10 members of the Beavers softball team played 31 hours, 32 minutes, and 33 seconds of wiffle ball, the longest consecutive wiffle ball marathon. Now, Guinness has yet to officially verify the record, but I'll go ahead and officially call it the top play of the past week in the NSIC. Once again, a thank you to all of our member schools for their contributions. We'll be back next week for another Northern Sun Experience.